people look at you, they put you on this pedestal, and they think they see you as this leadership figure, and they think that you've got all the answers. But it goes two ways, right? A lot of people don't realize that as a leader, you're also only human, right? And you don't have all the answers. Half the time you're just improvising and trying to do the right thing as well, and you're actually looking for that kind of input from your team or your colleagues to give their opinion and to tell you when they think you're doing the wrong thing.
Excited to talk with today's guest, Maarten Dreyer, who I chat with quite regularly as he's a leader, a co-worker at Emarsys that is now part of SAP, and more precisely is the TCS director for the UK, France and United Arab Emirates, TCS meaning Technical Client Support. I tried to recreate our London office environment in the background where we actually met. My first introduction meeting with Maarten impressed me. First thing, he told me that what he loved most about his job is the ability to combine both his passion for technical troubleshooting and for managing people, which is not common, without going into the cliché. And since I've worked with him, I definitely can say that it's a pleasure collaborating with him, not only because of his expertise and performance, but also because he has empathy and he makes sure to listen to others' input and empower his team. He's been nominated as Value Leader several times, and actually his background is very much unusual and utmost interesting, as he used to work as a social worker. So today he'll share with us some details about his path, his work and leadership style, and how he transferred skills that seem opposite in a world that tend to be polarized. So thank you so much and welcome, Maarten.
Hi, glad to be here. Yeah, thanks for having me.
First question, as I said during our introduction meeting, you had told me that what you love most about your job is this combination of technical and managing people. Would you like to explain this in more details?
Sure. I mean, traditionally, you said without going into the cliche, I think, yeah, the cliche is in fact that you're either managing or working with people or you're working in tech, which means mostly working with computers, like if you're a developer, for example. And there's always been this rift between a developer and the person who's actually client facing, right? The marketer, for example. And if a marketer has a problem because one of his systems doesn't work or the app that was designed, they try to talk to the developer and then, you know, they don't understand one another. They are literally talking different language almost, it seems. What I like so much about being in technical client support is that not necessarily just because of my background, but it is a very technical role, but it is also client facing. So you have to be a techie, otherwise you can't do the job. But at the same time, you have to also be good with people, because the people that you're working with, they are not techies, or sometimes they are. We've got both. We've got developers and we've got marketers. We don't know much about the technology that's driving a big marketing platform, which is what we do. So you have to be able to get this awfully technical thing across in layman terms almost. That requires some pretty special skills, I think, in people, where the cliche is that you're either a people person or you're not a people person. But in this case, you have to kind of be a hybrid of both. So it's difficult to find people for the job, actually.
Yeah, indeed. But would you say that it's something natural, or this is something that you worked through?
I would say, first and foremost, I think I've not always been good with people. I've always been more of a technical guy. I grew up with computers for, I think I grew up with MS-DOS when I was 6, I think. You know, that was before we even had Windows, right? So I've always had a thing with computers, but then I was also a very creative person. So as a hobby, I play guitar and I sing. So back in the day, I wanted to become a professional musician. That's really what what my dream was, right? I wanted to just play guitar all day in a professional band and go and tour the world. And I was young and naive because that's not how things work. So I applied for college, for music school, and I sent my demos in, and they liked me, but it wasn't good enough. So I failed at that, and then I didn't really know what to do with my life. And my mum is she's a social worker. So she then said, like, hey, why don't you give that a go? And I also liked people. So basically, as a lack of something better to think of, I decided to do social work. And looking back at it, I wasn't very good at it. Admittedly, it took forever to finish it. But if I look back at my career now, I'm glad I did it, because I did learn a lot of valuable skills to do with people rather than computers. But then again, I'm not a developer, for example, because that's not something I did. I didn't do computer science. So
That's so interesting. I didn't know the part of you willing to be a musician. And then
yeah.
it's been
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, but
it's
yeah.
been so, I mean, you've gone through so many changes in your choice and your career and your evolution.
Yeah.
And then you came back to your first love. So,
Yeah.
as you said, you've earned a lot of experience from being a social worker.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in such a role, you support and you guide individuals. So is this something that you have transferred into your leadership style when you manage your team
Yeah.
beyond just communicating with people in general?
Yeah, 100%, definitely. I mean, if you manage a team, then managing a computer is easy, right? Because they do what you tell them to do. And if they say nope, error, I can't do it, then it's often not the computer's fault. It's because you're giving it the wrong input. People are not like that. They are very different. Everybody's different. And therefore that makes them harder to manage. It's the biggest challenge in the job, is managing the people, because people have different needs. They've got opinions about everything, especially these days. People are very opinionated. It's a minefield out there. But yeah, I think especially when you look at, like, what does a person need, right? One person is very happy just doing what he does day in, day out, and he does that, or she does that for many, many years to come, and they don't need much. The other person is really difficult to please, because you give them something and then they are really good at it and they finish it, and it takes them 2 weeks or maybe even 1 week, and then they're like, oh, give me more, give me more, give me more. Keep feeding me with new challenges and new knowledge and these things. So I think having a social work background definitely is very valuable when managing people, especially with how to give feedback to people. I think that's such a hard part of the job, not just when you're a manager, but also when just in general, telling someone about their flaws or their mistakes, or even giving a compliment to someone when they've done a good job. It can be that. I think that's one of the most difficult things, not necessarily just professionally, but also personally. That's very difficult. And having a social work background, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am absolutely perfect at giving feedback to people, because I'm not. I don't think anyone is, but it definitely helps.
Do you follow the bear model?
No, I've got no idea what that is. No.
Behavior, effect, alternative results, so that
Mm-hmm.
you put some context and then you walk the people through, yeah, the feedback,
Mm-hmm.
showing the impact it has on others.
I've used a couple of models back in the day when I was in college studying to be a social worker. I can't honestly say that I remember many of the actual theoretical models, but I don't know. There's not one method to giving feedback to a person that fits all, because one person is really sensitive and the other one is completely unsensitive. So you have to kind of so what I'm saying is that you've got one person, and you have to be really careful how you bring it. Otherwise, that person might become upset because they feel criticized about everything. Right? People like that exist. And then you've got other people that, it's almost like they've got a heart made out of stone. Whatever you say, it won't arrive. So you have to be pretty harsh with them and really to the point. way you would do that to the sensitive person, that you would probably hurt that person's feelings. So again, sure, there's models out there that you can use and apply, but it's not one glove fits all. I think that the models should be, or the theory should be there to support you when you get stuck, but you can't use the theory saying, okay, this is the one and the only way to do it. That's again, that's not how people work, because people are different. If everybody would be the same, then yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like overall guidelines on how to present and structure the feedback, but it doesn't mean you have to address it this way because, as you said,
Yeah.
everyone is different. So we need some personalization, even in
Yeah.
the feedback, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Would you, and I guess it's even more difficult in those times where everything is changing and people need to adapt constantly, and there's such a narrow border between personal and professional lives and first feelings and way to react to change. So do you personally have any advice on keeping a high spirit through difficult times?
um that's a difficult question. Yeah, I mean, everybody's got a down day once in a while, right? Where they're just not feeling up for it, or they're just a bit, feeling a bit down, a bit blue, as we say. Nah, I don't really have much of advice there. Just keep your chin up. I always say, okay, today is raining, but after rain there will be sunshine. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not the day after, but eventually there will be sunshine and a big rainbow at the end of it. Hopefully with a pot of gold, but yeah, at the end of the rainbow. Now I think it's tough to always be positive, especially in the past year and a half with the lockdown and the whole pandemic. People have struggled more than ever, purely because people struggle a lot with loneliness. For example, I've had calls with colleagues when I asked them how are you doing, and then they replied not so well, and I'm like, oh, what's going on? And then after digging a little bit deeper, it surfaced that okay, they've been cooped up in a little bedroom in the center of London, without friends, without family, and it turns out that they just miss social interaction. They're lonely, things like that. And then that's tough, especially to talk about. But I do think it's important to talk about these things as an employee or as an employer. I think now more than ever, mental health is something that really needs to be addressed in the workplace, to make sure that people do feel listened to, and especially realize that they're not in this alone. Right? We're all in the same boat. You've got a bit of a crappy day on Monday. Okay, I might have a crappy day on Tuesday. It's difficult to always put on the brave face and smile, because the reality is different. We all know it. It's just that no one's, a lot of people don't talk about it, but it's true.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to not, well, to have some optimism, but at the same time, not fall into positive toxicity, toxic positivity. I did a mix up here, where you pretend everything is going well, while
Mhm.
actually you're facing struggle in the inside. And it's good at some point to be able to express that and share this, as you said, to just be able to exchange because you're probably not alone, and I think it's an important fact, as well as also looking at maybe a competing future, as you said, maybe it's raining and
Mhm.
raining tomorrow again, but in 2 days it will be sunny. It
Yeah.
may take a bit more time in London or in the UK in general to get
Not too many sunny days. It's been awful this week again, but and last week, to be honest. But I always just think, if you're having a really bad day, then I always said to myself, there's always like to kind of cheer myself up, which isn't a nice way to do it, but it's the truth that there's always someone out there who's having an even worse day than me. And I feel sorry for that person, obviously, but things could always be worse. So just be happy with what you've got, because it could be worse.
That's very true. So also we've been talking about the UK where you live now and where you work,
Yeah,
but you're originally from the Netherlands.
yeah,
So,
that's why I'm wearing orange.
oh, I didn't spot it. Who are you cheering for in the Euro?
The Netherlands, obviously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, what made you come to the UK, and do you think that there were more opportunities in terms of career? Do you want to share?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, a little bit of background about myself. I'm half Dutch, half German, actually. So I'm not a full Dutchie. Mom's Dutch, my dad's German, but I was born and grew up in the Netherlands, so in Maastricht, all the way in the south. And the Netherlands is really nice. But when I was 19, I met my the love of my life, currently my wife. So it all turned well in the end. Um, and yeah, we've known each other for a really long time. And at some point, we were living together, and I was working for Vodafone at the time. Again, in quite a technical position, so I've always had like techie jobs, kind of thing. And she decided that she wanted to move back to England. So I then had to make a decision to either follow her and quit my job, or I would not quit my job, and basically that would be the end of us. But my job, it was okay, but it wasn't a great job. I wasn't really going anywhere, so I took the chance and I said, okay, I can use a change in scenery. I'll do it. I'll come with you to England, and in which case I said, okay, but if we go to England, I want to go to London because that's where all the job opportunities were, etc. And I'm glad I did it because I managed to get a job before I even relocated in London. So I flew out to London one day for an interview with a little company called Truephone at the time, and they were located in Canary Wharf. And I was lucky because it was also a mobile company, and they were using the Dutch Vodafone network. So and I was working for Vodafone Netherlands at the time as a network specialist. So I knew the ins and the outs of the Dutch Vodafone network. So they were really glad to have a person like me apply there because obviously I guess that a guy like that doesn't swing by that often. So for them, this was a good opportunity as well. So I was lucky. I was employed before I even moved, and I did that for not that long. I think 9 months or so before I found my job at Emarsys, where I'm still there today. So I think in terms of job opportunity, yeah, London is definitely a lot better when it comes to work and just all sorts of work. You can find any job in London. Whereas where I'm from in Maastricht, it's also a city, but it's not comparable with London. It's a very, very, very small city. Most people would probably call it a village, but for the Netherlands, being a small country that it is, it's a city. But we've got a couple of big companies where most people, they find a job there. But other than that, the options are limited unless you go to the center in the Netherlands, like Amsterdam, Eindhoven, that sort of area. Yeah, but I was never interested in going there.
So yeah, it was a combination of personal and professional decision that worked out
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so far so good.
We cross fingers. I don't doubt it will continue to go well. So yeah, in terms of culture, you talked about the opportunities, but in terms of
Mm-hmm.
work culture and work-life balance, have you experienced some gaps in between both countries?
Um, well, I definitely think that the Dutch have more of a work-life balance, but that's partly also because the Netherlands is a lot smaller, right? So a lot of people live closer to work purely because of the fact that the UK is much larger and London is very expensive. A lot of people have London-based jobs, but they don't want to live in London because the rent is extortionate, and you practically have to be a millionaire if you want to buy a property in London, especially if you want to buy a property large enough to have a family. So if you're like me, then you'll look elsewhere outside of London. For example, I work in London, but I live in Kent because that's affordable. But it does mean that on a daily basis, in total, I commute for about 3 hours up and down. So it just door to door is an hour and 20 minutes. in the Netherlands, everybody has a bicycle, and the reason for that is because you can do everything with your bike. So when I worked at Vodafone, I cycled to work, and it was a 10-minute cycle ride. So you finish at 5, and then you're home at 5:10. Now I finish at 6, and I'm home at 7:30, and then I haven't even eaten yet. So in terms of work-life balance, yeah, there was a big difference there. Obviously, that's not everywhere like that in the Netherlands, right? If you work in the Randstad, as we call it, which is Rotterdam, Amsterdam, The Hague, that sort of thing, then people also have a longer commute, but half an hour is kind of normal. So it's still not that much. Obviously, now with the pandemic for the past year and a half, I've been working from home. So now I've got my work-life balance back. Although in the beginning it was hard because I would be working late evenings a lot because you're not in a work environment anymore. Your work environment becomes your personal environment, like for many of us. But now I've gotten really good at just switching off at 6. So
That's good. But what you're saying is much more, I guess, not necessarily like the UK, there's the Netherlands culture, but much more the size of the city, right?
yeah,
Sure.
yeah, I think. But as well, I think in the Netherlands or the Dutch, they don't really have that much of a culture where people work late all the time. They are very much a 9 to 5 group of people. So when it's 5 o'clock, then that work's done. Anything that didn't finish, okay, I'll have to wait till tomorrow.
No,
Whereas the English are very hardworking, I have to admit that. Yeah.
so you've shared also how you succeeded in landing a job. You talk about luck, but I also think this is some work and some effort that you provided to get it. So would you have any advice on hunting jobs and looking out for opportunities, giving yourselves a chance to land a job?
Yeah, it's difficult. Because I do think I got a little bit lucky, but obviously it's not just luck, right? But the reason why I think I got lucky is, sorry, yep.
No, but I guess especially given the diversity of your background,
Mm-hmm.
such early when you're in early career, most often recruiters are kind of suspicious about that, right? So you do have
Yeah.
to explain and you have to show that you're willing to go into this position. So is
Yeah, obviously I didn't start as a director of of the department kind of thing, right? I got hired at Emarsys 5 years ago now, almost, and as a first level support agent as well. So I just started from the ground up, and things were different then because the company was really small. So we didn't have a lot of technology yet. So the things that you had to know were much less than compared to what I would look for in a first level agent now if I hire someone. But I think if you want to land the right job, I think it's important to be honest and true to yourself. And first of all, ask yourself, okay, what do you really want? And realize that you have to start somewhere. You can't expect to be fresh out of university and immediately start a big fancy job as a vice president somewhere. This is not how it works. And unfortunately, I do get applicants that apply for a first level position. And then when we talk about salary expectation, they say, I want £100,000 a year. That's crazy. That's not, I'm not on £100,000 a year. So I do think that you have to be a little bit true to be truthful to yourself and think about, okay, is it realistic what people are asking these days? And also, I think when you get the job, or maybe even before you get the job, think about, okay, how fast do you want to progress? Because being in a first level position is not a bad thing. There's no shame in doing that, right? That's actually a bloody hard, difficult job to do. But very often I see people that say, yeah, I'll accept a first level position, but only if I can progress into second level within 3 months. Well, that's also not realistic considering that your probation period is 6 months. So that won't work. And why do you want to progress into that next step so quickly, so badly? I think it's really important for people to stick to their goods, do what you're good at, and do that for a while until you are the best at it, right? Until you can say, okay, in this position, I am the best in my team. I am the best first level agent. Okay, now you're ready for the next step. But if you end up growing too fast, then you're gonna skip steps, and you're not gonna be as good as you could be in the end. So that's one. And also, I think that you should be truthful about what you're putting on your CV. So often, I get applicants that put on their CV HTML as an example. Okay, well, if you've got that on your CV, then I can assume that you know HTML, right? But I see a lot of people that know one line of HTML, and then they put that on the CV as I know HTML. But then when they get to the interview, obviously I'm going to test them on that. Why not? Otherwise, you shouldn't have put it on there. And then they fail miserably at these tests, and that's a shame, because if you would have been honest about it and you said, okay, I don't know any HTML, that's okay. I can teach you. You make up for that in other skills because you've got a lot of soft skills, for example, right? You're really good with people. I didn't know any HTML when I landed this job, and people taught me, and I taught myself a little bit as well. So you do have to work hard at it, but that makes such a better impression than putting something on your CV saying I can do this, and then actually when they test you on it, you can't demonstrate your skill set. That's worse. So I think it's important to be humble.
Makes sense. I think, yeah, this is how you can grow and also gain confidence from the management.
Yeah.
What is your stand on performance?
Okay. Well, I think performance is very important. But I say that as a manager, because why would I want someone on the team that doesn't perform? Right? You're
Yeah.
taking up a slot. We're paying you money to do a job, and if you're not doing the job, then why are you here? Then I think that we should probably replace you with someone who I can pay the same kind of money and does do the job. So I think performance is important, but it's not everything either, right? I mean, I think there's that you have to look at it from two angles. You've got your KPIs, so your hard targets, and then you've got the soft targets. If I look, for example, at my job, then our job is mostly ticket based. So people receive a ticket, and then they have to solve the ticket. But because of the nature of the company that we work for in the technology, no ticket is the same, and a ticket can take 5 minutes to solve. It can also take half a year. So you have to take these metrics with a bit of a pinch of salt, to be honest, because you can say to someone, okay, I want you to solve X amount of tickets a month, and then they may or may not reach that target. Now, if they don't reach the target, then obviously there's a reason for that. But that's that, and I think that's the whole important part of it. Is okay? Why didn't you reach? Why didn't you solve this amount of tickets? Is it because maybe you're doing really difficult tickets all the time, tickets that other people can't do, or they don't want to do it because they find it too difficult? They go for the easy stuff. So I think metrics are important. Performance is important. But if you, it's more than just looking at a spreadsheet with numbers and going like, okay, pass, declined, or rejected, fail, or whatever you want to call it. The green stamp or the rat stamp. It's not that binary. You have to look at it with the tints of the shades of gray. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
Yeah, as you said, it's hard to be, well, there are some subjective criteria into that. Well, not necessarily like subjective, but it's difficult to just look at the metrics that you're given. You also
yeah.
have to take into account different factors.
I rather, if I look at performance, I don't like performance as a word. I rather look at efficiency, right? Are you efficient? Are you an efficient employee? And what does that mean? If you've got a ticket and it takes you, you're a first level agent, okay, then you can look at the ticket for an hour, okay, and if you can't solve it or you can't work it out within an hour, then maybe you should think about escalating it to a colleague or a second level agent or third level or wherever you need to escalate it to, because an hour, I would say that's the maximum time that you should spend on trying to figure something out in our position anyway. And if you can't figure it out, you need to send it to someone who either knows more about the topic or you need to ask for help. And often I hear, okay, but I want to learn, so I need more time to spend on that. That's fine, but then after an hour, ask for help. Yeah. If I sometimes, and I've also seen this, is somebody who's really trying to figure it out because they want to prove something to themselves, and then they end up sitting on this one ticket for 4 hours, and that's great. Kudos for being so committed to trying to solve this problem for this client. At the same time, that's not very efficient, right? Because if you do that all the time, then I'm going to need a lot more full-time employees who obviously cost them the business a lot of money because they need salaries to get the same level of production keeping going. Because if everybody would spend 4 hours on a ticket, then we're going to have a lot of service level breaches because everything's going to pile up and back up. So you kind of have to find a happy middle between quality and quantity. You can't just say, okay, just quality is important, because if you can only deliver a good job on a ticket by doing 2 tickets a day, then I've got a problem with that, because your quantity is staying behind big time. But at the other side is, okay, if you do 10 tickets an hour but the quality is really poor and the clients aren't happy, that's not good either. Yeah. So if I look at performance, I think you have to look at both. It's not that black and white.
Yeah, and I think it goes back also to what you said earlier about being humble, being able to assess your own capability. It's okay, I think, to say we don't know. Most often we don't dare asking for help, while this is completely acceptable if you have looked for a solution and you clarify what you have done and where you need help precisely.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes from leadership as well, right? That's a culture that you create within a team, because helping is not a shame. People sometimes feel ashamed for asking for help. They feel like, oh gosh, I'm not good at my job, I'm failing because I'm asking for help, which means that I can't do the job. Instead of that, you have to try and turn that around. Asking for help is a strength. That shows that you're smart, because you're asking someone to teach you how it works, so that next time you may not need that help, and you're trying to make yourself a better person. I remember when I joined the business, I was asking for help every 2 minutes. I kind of took the attitude like, oh, you seem to know everything around here, so I'm just going to sit next to you all day and I'm going to learn everything that you know, and then I'm going to become better than you. That's the way it works. You don't have to. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, right? So
I would be off. When we are off, I would be curious to know who you sat next to. I think this is one of the first things I learned when I joined Emarsys. I figured out who is the best at each different parts, whether modules within the solution or the process, or whatever. And then whenever I would reach out to them and say, hey, I need help on this, can you please
that's true. You can do 2 things. You can either try and learn as much as you can yourself, right? Which is I'm a big advocate of that. I always want to know as much as I possibly can, because I love it. But another real big strength is maybe you don't have to know that much. Maybe you just need to become really good at where to find the information, be that on the internet or in people. Right? If you're really good at knowing the people around you and who is really good at little bits of the puzzle, that you can say, okay, I need to find the answer to this question. I don't know it, but I know that this person knows the question or the answer to that question. So you just go and utilize that person. And that, I think that's the sign of a strong and a good leader is building, not being able to be good at the job yourself, but being able to build a team around yourself that can do the job.
Yeah. But anyway, it's interdependent, because I mean, it depends on in what kind of details you're going into. But most of, if you ask people for help, you learn yourself, and then next time you don't need that much help.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, hopefully, otherwise, like, you should ask yourself questions. But so, you talked about performance in general, and
Hmm.
mostly as a manager and as a leader, because I do think that you're a great leader. Would you
Thank
say
you.
that you have a different way of assessing performance for others, for your team, and for yourself?
So if I measure the performance of my team differently than I measure performance for myself,
Yeah, would you say you're more demanding for yourself, for instance?
um,
You know what I
no,
mean? No?
no, I don't think so. I've got crazy high standards. This is something that people always say to me, is that they think that I'm a little bit unrealistic with my expectations from people, and this is also one of the reasons why sometimes I struggle to find a new hire, because I look for a lot in someone. You want that perfect person, and they don't exist. So you're always going to have to give and take a little bit in different areas, right? And but that, I think I do that because I'm a total perfectionist myself, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad. In this line of work, it's pretty good, because that means you're really thorough, which we have to be. But because I push the bar a lot, so I set a really high bar for myself. I have that same expectation with other people, and that's why sometimes for other people it's not always the easiest to work for me, because if I then start, I don't know, checking their work, I can be pretty brutal when it comes to, in general. I would say, okay, you've done a really good job, but you've used the wrong word there, your English wasn't great, etc., etc. I can go on and on and on and really scrutinize someone, and people don't like that. As a matter of fact, they hate it. But it's also about the way that you do it, and it's important to make the other person understand that what you're trying to do is, you're not trying to break them down. Well, you are, but you're trying to break them down to then build them back up, and become a better, well, not a better human being or a better person, but a better person at that job,
Yeah.
right? And once they've worked for me for a little while, and they've learned to understand me and understand my ways a little bit, then they are less scared of it. And they understand that if I'm being a little bit Dutch, because the Dutch, they can be pretty blunt and, unsalted feedback and these things, then they understand that all I'm trying to do is make them a better performer.
Yeah.
And eventually that works, but not for everybody. It doesn't always work out.
Yeah, I think anyway it goes both ways. He needs to be a good fit between the manager and the team members, but it
Yeah.
happens. But yeah, this podcast is actually called Explore Imperfect Success.
Oh.
Right? I think one of the things I hear the most is not everything is perfect, Christine. So we
Yeah.
are all learning. Um, but yeah, I think sometimes it's hard to acknowledge your errors, but it's actually good to make sure you grow and build yourself to be better
Yeah.
next time. So how do you do to cope with things and not take these personally? Which is even more critical in your job because, as you said, you mostly interact with clients through tickets.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Yeah.
don't necessarily have this social interaction where you can understand each other. So yeah, how do you cope with that?
Yeah, with clients, we don't really have that issue, because our clients, they are other businesses, right? So mostly our clients, they are very polite, very professional, and yeah, we're talking about a technical issue 90% of the time. So it's it's very difficult to make that personal. They understand that if something doesn't work, that's not my fault. I didn't do that on purpose. It's because there's a system failure somewhere, and I can't. I didn't cause that, but they do want me to try and help them to fix it. So it really hasn't happened very often that a client was making something personal. What can sometimes happen is that they are very stressed because they are getting a lot of pressure from whoever is senior to them. Let's say that, I don't know, there's a system not working, and they are losing money because of that. And we are doing the best that we can to fix this problem for them, but it's not going quick enough. Then they can become a little bit impatient at times, and they can transfer that stress onto you. And then sometimes it can get a little bit personal, where they say, okay, you are not doing a good enough job. And then it's, you have to try to nuance that and understand that they are not mad at you as a person. They're not saying that you as a person are bad at your job. What they are saying is, hey, I'm getting yelled at from my boss, and I really need this fixed. Can you please do something to help me? And I think, you have to try and understand that person is not deliberately trying to attack you or saying that you're not good at your job. That's the client-facing part of the job, right? I guess that's why you need to have these interpersonal skills, because it's not just fixing a technical problem. It's also trying to calm down a person if they're very stressed. So yeah, I don't really. Rarely ever take it personal with a client. With colleagues, obviously, it can be a little bit different, especially when it's about giving each other feedback. When you give someone feedback, I think it's important to immediately say from the beginning that you don't think that they made a mistake. You're only trying to help them, to show them, okay, you've done it one way, let me show you another way. Not necessarily a better way, but a way, obviously, I think it's going to be a better way. Otherwise, I wouldn't be discussing it. But that's not how you should never say like, oh, you've done this wrong. You've messed it up. You've done a bad job. That's not constructive at all. But sometimes in the heat of the battle, people can get a little bit fierce, and then it can happen that they say like, okay, I don't agree with you. My way is better. Okay. That's cool. No problem. I'm not sat here saying that your way is better than my way, or my way is better than your way. I'm just exploring different avenues, and hopefully you'll come to realize that my way might be the better way. But yeah, I don't know. It's there's a certain maturity to it. I think that people have to understand that when you're being given feedback, so you're receiving feedback, you're on the receiving end, is that someone is actually trying to do you a huge favor. And that's difficult to understand. I think that if you can't do that at all, these people unfortunately exist, then maybe you need to reconsider.
That's the way you phrase this. But yeah, I think what you said is mostly putting yourself in others' shoes, and also making sure like, this is much more an exchange rather than imposing something. And this actually reminds me of what I discussed with Tarek, who you know, who is head of marketing at New Pharma, because I interviewed with him as well. And he said like, when he has a new idea or a feedback, he doesn't impose this to his team. He just shares the idea, and he say, okay, find a few things that are positive about this. So if they can find some ideas, and it's good because they are collaborating to create something all together. Shows that this is positive. If no one can find anything positive, you have the answer, right? So I thought this was a very nice way to do this, rather than ask, do you think it's good or bad? Because people don't necessarily want to contradict you, or
no, that's true. I mean, because they're scared to go against you, right? Because especially if you're the boss, and you're like, okay, I've got this idea, this is what I want to implement or do, then it takes a special kind of guts to then for someone to say like, well, hey boss, I don't think that's a good idea at all. A lot of people just go like, well, you're the boss, so I'll just do whatever you say. But as the boss, you don't know what you're doing half the time. Like, it's true, we don't have all the answers at all. But people look at you, they put you on this pedestal, and they think they see you as this leadership figure, and they think that you've got all the answers. But it goes two ways, right? A lot of people don't realize that as a leadership figure or a leader, you're also only human, right? And and you don't have all the answers. Half the time you're just improvising and trying to do the right thing as well. And you're actually looking for that kind of input from your team or your colleagues to give their opinion and to tell you when they think you're doing the wrong thing. Because I'm just one person. So if I say, okay, I think this is a great idea, shall we do it like this? And then 6 people who are not in a leadership position, they say, we don't think this is such a great idea. That's really valuable input, because that's 6 against 1, right? They probably have a better idea of what's happening than I do, especially because a lot of the time, these are the people that are actually doing the job.
Completely.
Right. There's a lot of managers or leaders out there that lead the team, but they are not doing the groundwork. Right. Yeah. They are the ones writing the processes, implementing the processes. But if you're not actually doing the job, then how are you going to know what's actually good for the team? And this is something that I'm a really, really strong advocate and believer for. I have a strong. I don't like managers that are just managers, right? So people that are hired externally, they come in as this hotshot manager. They've never actually done the job, and then they think they've got all the right answers. I don't believe in that. That's why I'm glad that I actually started all the way at the bottom, and because I've done it, the job. I still do the job, and I think that's important, yeah, because then your team as well, they see you as one of their own. They don't necessarily see you as the manager, right? They see you as the leader, and I think there's a difference between a manager and a leader.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the process in the end, or everything that we are trying to implement, is meant to improve their day-to-day work. So indeed, if we don't see the value in it, I think it's not worth it.
100%, yeah.
To do some iteration and some testing, and then just like a software development kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And last question is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
To my younger self? That would be quite easy, I think, actually. I would say to my younger self to party less, and I would have loved to do a little bit more at school. I took a long time to finish my education because I wasn't very motivated. This refers to social work. So in the Netherlands, doing social work is meant to take 4 years. I took 7, so almost twice as long, purely because I wasn't motivated. I never enjoyed reading books about things that I didn't like. For example, to give an example, during my social work course, I had to take this exam about law. So I had to learn all these laws from my head. And I thought to myself, why do I need to know this? This has nothing to do with people. Or with reflection or giving feedback or helping someone. Why do I need to study law? Like, if I wanted to do law, I'd gone to law school, right? So it took me 3 years to pass this exam purely because I didn't want to read the book. And this is something that I still struggle with today, and I probably will struggle with it for the rest of my life. I struggle with doing tasks that I don't enjoy. If I don't see the logic or the reasoning behind it, then I just don't want to do it. And then it will take me forever to bring myself to do it. Looking back at my life, I would say to my younger self, okay, just get your ass in gear and just finish it.
That's very interesting, because I think I've seen the number of certification, technical certification that you passed.
That I have now, yeah. But those are things that I enjoy. That's the difference. That's easy.
I think, hard work is truly linked to what motivates you and what passionates you. So, you do have to do tasks that sometimes do not please you, but most importantly, I think you have to find your path, and this is the way you'll actually be fulfilled and work towards that. I remember an example where an employee used to work both at the Caesar Palace and I think the Bellagio or the Las Vegas hotel. Same job, right? Same position. But
Hmm.
at one place, he would be super smiling, super engaged, and so on. And at the
Hmm.
other, he would be completely shy. And it's because of both environment were
Hmm.
very different. And so this changed everything in terms of motivation,
Hmm.
which is the key piece, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. Because people do what they like, what they enjoy, right? And if I think about it back then, a lot of people tell me now, like, oh, maybe you should have done computer science instead of social works because that's what you love, that's what you're so good at, that's what motivates you. And maybe there's a certain truth to that. I think had I done computer science, then maybe life would be different now. I don't know. At the same time, I don't regret doing social works because I've learned so many valuable skills that now I can also use that in my job, right? Doing the technical side and helping people. Because had I done just computer science, I probably would have ended up as a developer, hopefully a really good one, but I probably wouldn't have ended up in the technical role where I managed a team. And I always said to myself, I love technical things, but I also love people. And ideally, I would like to have a job where I can combine the both. Those jobs are kind of rare, where you can really combine the technical aspects and the people aspects. But I found that job now, and yeah, I pride myself really lucky to be in the position that I am in.
Well, as you said, it's good to go from the bottom up so that you can understand what the operational work consists in, and you have
Mm-hmm.
this legitimacy in terms of expertise. But not everyone who has the expertise can become a manager or a leader, much more a leader. I think what is relayed within the society is that being a manager is it's a factor that shows that you're successful, but I
Mm-hmm.
think you should just follow what you are true, yeah, being true to yourself. Because some people don't
Yeah.
want to manage a team. They don't have all these
No,
personal skills.
uh, that's completely true. You've got yeah, you've got people that just like to do the job, and then you've got people that are born managers, but they don't actually know much about doing the actual job. And then you've got people that are a bit of both. And there's no right or wrong there, right? I think that what always annoyed me when I was doing a job, for example, in my old Vodafone job, right? I would be on the network crew, as we call it. So I would get questions about why my mobile phone doesn't have any reception, or why does the SMS message that I sent didn't arrive with the person I sent it to. Now, these sound like really simple questions, but the technical side of why a mobile phone doesn't have any reception or why an SMS doesn't arrive, it's very difficult. I won't bore you with it because people write entire books about that. But when I would get stuck on one of these questions and I needed help, I would go to my boss and I would say, "Hey, I'm stuck. Can you help me?" And um, my boss would not know what to do. He'd be like, "Well, I don't know anything about networks." um, okay, so who do I speak to help me? And if the boss can then answer the question, okay, well, I don't know anything about networks, but this person does, you should go and ask him. That's fine. You're a great manager, in my opinion, right? It's not about knowing the answer to everything. It's about helping someone get to the answer in your way or their own way, but it's helping someone along. To give you an example, I won't name him, but one of our colleagues who manages one of the third level teams that we have is fantastic at that. If you ask this person a question, how do I solve this? This person might say, I've got no idea. But this person knows, that person knows. Go there, go there, go there. So just being able to put someone on the right path to finding the solution or the answer themselves, that's that's all that matters. And how you do that, whether by actually knowing the answer yourself because you've done the job and because you're one of the people that just knows a lot or wants to know everything, that's fine. Or because you've gathered a whole crew of people around you that know the answer. So I think as a good manager, you can be a great manager and not know anything, right? And that's fine, I think. But what isn't fine is that if one of your people gets stuck and they come to you for help and you can't help them at all because you don't have the knowledge, and you also don't know who to turn to or put them on the right path, then I think that you need to tell that person, I don't have the answers today, but I'm going to find out for you. Yeah. And I'll be back with you tomorrow, and then help them the next day.
Makes sense. Yeah, definitely. Well, Maarten, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk with you as always. I've learned a lot about your background, much more than I knew. And it's always good to share about more generally how to, well, hopefully do a good job as someone who is operational in the team, but also as a leader. And I again, it's great collaborating with you, and I'm sure.
Likewise.
And I'm sure we'll discuss sometime soon.
Yeah, we don't talk much anymore. We should collaborate more.
Good. It means that I don't have too many issues, right?
That's the thing, yeah. But that's, when people don't talk to me, they're like, "Oh, I've spoken to you forever." And I was like, "Well, that can either mean two things. Like either you've just become really good at your job, so you don't need help anymore, or the computers don't crash for a day."
Exactly. So I think
yeah, not having to speak to me is usually a good thing.
But this is why we have such a chat, which don't involve any of those. And well, actually, hopefully, I don't talk to you anytime soon, Maarten.
Well, hopefully, when the pandemic is over, hopefully we can all meet up either in London or in Paris and chat in a more social way. That would be nice.
Yeah, exactly. The ping pong table is waiting for us. And
that's it.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Christine. Speak to you soon.